so many. I think one of the things that's surprised me, that I've come to know is definitely true, is that after the busiest year they've ever had, the most money they've ever made, you have so many LOs who feel stuck, stagnant, unhappy. Like, what is that about? why after the in some ways the easiest year in terms of getting new clients into the pipeline, are people so unhappy?
You ask me these questions that, like, I feel like are their own, like, 4-hour podcast. Like,
well, that's the ultimate goal, Mark.
There's a lot of reasons. And by the way, it's wild. We'll pay somebody to come down here on a recruiting trip. A guy who did $100 million last year and made 7 figures. Guy, by the way, who grew up, never went to college, never thought, was convinced he was going to be struggling his whole life, has now just made $1 million in a year. Family's taken care of, and is feeling really good about their ability to execute at work, and they are miserable. They're like, I hate realtors, I hate my clients, I hate my company. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure all those people are awful, right? It's like, or maybe it's you, right? It's like what you're focusing on and going through it. And so I started to break it down for them, and there's a couple different pieces. The first one is what drives you to this sort of work, and certainly to that level of success, is this idea that that success or that amount of money will bring you happiness. I know for me in my career, I was 100% sure that was true. When I got into being a loan officer, it was like, I just need to finish number one. I just need to make this amount of money, and then it's all going to be great. And then you get there and you're like, it's the same, right? The things that make us happy or not happy are, and happy is like a fleeting feeling anyway, but even just like bring us joy or are about the journey that we're on and the people that we're on it with. And as much as we want to make it about those other things, by the way, if you don't have money, I understand how that can make you miserable, right? Like, I've always want to be so careful about that, because we're talking about different extremes of like, hey, dude, you were a $200,000 a year loan officer. Now you're a $600,000 a year loan officer, and you thought that was going to make you happy, and it didn't change anything, right? It doesn't change it. So that's that. The realization is, okay, then what am I doing all of this for? And by the way, next year I'm going to have to either work twice as hard to do the same amount, or I'm going to make less. And that's depressing, because these people are motivated by growth and getting better and moving up. And so those things are very real. And the last thing is that between COVID and everybody working remotely, and then the remoteness of loan officers' lives in general, which is like they're not in an office every day, they're out on the road meeting people, doing that stuff. They're alone, and they're not interacting with other people in a positive way. They're not part of a company culture in the same way, and so they feel like they're on their little island alone. They had all this success. They don't know what to do with it. They're not getting, no one's congratulating them on any of it, right? It's just like, hey, you took advantage of a great year. You buy the car, you buy the house, you do this stuff, and you're like, man, I'm still unhappy. And by the way, I'm 40 years old. Right, I got to do this for another 15 years, or that's the plan right now. And I'm counting down the days to retirement, which is like a horrific way to go through this experience, right? And so we had a loan officer. I'm not talking about very specific people, and this is happening to me every day, right? There was a person I was talking to recently, and he's like, I'm like, why aren't you having fun anymore? And he's like, he had never even thought about it. He was so miserable. Like, he didn't even know he was miserable until I brought it up, and he was complaining about everything. I was like, hey man, you help grow your business. He's like, oh, but I hate doing that stuff. I'm like, well, why, what do you like about it? And he was like, well, I love working on the loans, and I like helping my clients. I'm like, cool, let's focus on how then you can get back into that. But he had been alone with his own thoughts on a persona that he didn't even realize he had shifted from aspirational to depressed, right? Which is what he really was. And it taken a toll on his personal life. He was recently divorced. He wasn't seeing his kids. Like, all of it was coming from, though, he thought he had built the life he wanted, and he was still unhappy when he got there. And so that's why we spend so much time with our loan officers figuring out what their goals are inside and outside of work, right? Because it's like, forget what you want your business to look like. What do you want your life to look like? Then let's build a business that supports that lifestyle, right? And back into the amount of prospecting you need to do, the amount of work you need to do, how to build your team, what skills you need to work on. Are you at the point where you're level 2 trying to get to level 3, which means I'm good at this, but I need a process? Or are you level 3 going to level 4, which means I need to learn how to lead other people, right? And so helping them identify why they're fighting to get to level 4, what it's going to do for them, and then also how to do it. And so, and other companies do not invest in their teams this way because, one, loan officers can leave, and so it feels like you're investing in somebody and then they can go somewhere else. 2, the people who are good enough to teach these guys would make more money just doing the stuff. And so, that's a really hard thing too. Like, I would make I do very well. We're executive at a mortgage company. I'd make just as much money or more if I just sold loans, right? Like, and I could go do it. Luckily for me, or for what we do here, my passion is not that. My passion is helping other people get where they want to go. But it's like, so you see these people who are like really good, who aren't going to spend the time working with these other people, building out these programs, doing the coaching, because it's more lucrative to go do something else, right? And so there's a real constrictions to our industry. And so you have is these super highly paid salespeople who generally feel unfulfilled. And by the way, the ones who don't, the ones who do get why they're doing it and work their system and their process, they are beaming with joy. I meet these people and you're like, oh my God, like they're like radiating happiness, in terms of and so because they feel like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're operating in their zone of genius, and their actions every day are very much in line with the person they want to be.
We don't stress it enough. When not us, Princeton, but the world does not stress enough that, if someone's telling you, hey, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, someone else might look at them and go, yeah, okay, sure. Like, it's such a divided topic. And I feel like, you're right. It's like, what's the difference between those loan officers and some of the others? It's like they have the intersection of they're making enough money to be comfortable or survive or whatever, and they like what they do, and they feel like I'm actually contributing to something, and I actually care. You bring up these other companies, and obviously we're not going to mention anybody's name or anything like that, but I understand why, like, from a logistical standpoint, they don't invest in their LOs in this way. But I just feel like from a strategic standpoint, it just makes so much sense to try to find really great, talented people and build them up. And I know, even in my short time here, how many LOs that join the company, and it's been a lot recently, are coming here because they're like, you guys said you're going to give me some support. Can you comment on that at all? I don't get the thought process behind these other companies.
Well, so a couple of different things. One is, depending on the leadership at those companies, they may not be the type of people or have the skill sets to even, really have thought through the value of what the coaching can do. And it's not the norm in the industry. So you need somebody who is passionate about that to begin with. The other piece of it is that there are, I would say, at least half of the top loan officers I talk to are not really that interested in getting better. Even when they say they are, like, they don't want to be coached. They don't want to spend the time on it. They're kind of living unconsciously, and it's all working fine. And like they're like, dude, yeah, they're just cynical about it all, right? It's like, the same, the person who's like would benefit the most from therapy is the one that's 100% sure that therapy is bullshit. It's that, right? And those things, like, it's like, man, I can help you, right? Are you open-minded enough to it? And some of them just aren't. And so now if you're at a company level and you're like, we're going to have this amazing coaching program, and then 65% of the loan officers don't participate in it, right? And they're being cynical about it. And you're like, well, what's the payoff here, right? Like, it doesn't, And so, we've been pretty deliberate about only bringing people on here who are interested in some way in either getting better or helping us get better, and that's their passion for it. And so, it's hard. I'll put it, this is the best way I can put it. Loan officers are incredibly highly compensated. There are guys getting $1 million plus bonuses all over the industry right now to change companies. It's the same reason why Urban Meyer just got fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars, yet he crushes it when he's in college, right? When you're working with student athletes who need it on a scholarship or trying to get to the NFL, you can kick the kicker while you're walking by and get away with it. When the kicker's making $2 million a year and has social media and can go, and can push back and go, you better never kick me again. By the way, I'm a grown man. You know what I mean? And it's not going to work that way. Yeah. It's harder to build culture, right? You can building culture on the high school level in football is very different than trying to do it on the NFL level. You have to be able to do it at a different level. So I think at sometimes the highest levels with these top loan officers, you got to have somebody really good that's going to connect with those people and try to make them better, that they're going to respect enough to work on themselves in that kind of way and be vulnerable about it. So I think it's very hard to do, is what I'm trying to say. And so while I ask the companies, like, hey, you made so much money last year, you should invest in this, I don't think they know how to do it or where to start.